Where's the boss?
Who's asking?
The name is Johnny. I have an appointment with Vienna.
Vienna's busy. You'll have to wait.
Johnny Guitar was a battlefield of egos, a canvas for Cold War paranoia, and a subversive masterpiece that nearly destroyed everyone who touched it. Joan Crawford and Mercedes McCambridge's feud erupted into physical violence. The director's marriage collapsed on set. Studio executives nearly buried the film for its political allegories. Today, we are revealing 20 weird facts about Johnny Guitar that will change how you see the cinematic masterpiece forever. And stick around for the bonus fact about the film's connection to a real-life murder that will leave you speechless. Number 1. Joan Crawford's vodka diet. Joan Crawford did not just play Vienna, she waged war against her own body to maintain her star image. During filming, the legendary actress subsisted on a bizarre diet of vodka and tomato juice, believing it would keep her weight down while giving her energy for grueling 14-hour shoots. Costume designers watched in horror as Crawford's weight fluctuated dramatically, requiring multiple versions of Vienna's iconic corseted gowns. She was literally starving herself for the camera, recalls a production assistant in a later interview. Some days she'd be so weak we had to prop her up against a wall between takes. Crawford's self-destructive behavior was not vanity, it was survival in an industry that devoured aging actresses. What audiences did not know was that behind those piercing eyes and determined posture was a woman literally starving to maintain her place in Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight. Number 2. The on-set fistfight. The hatred between Joan Crawford and Mercedes McCambridge was not just acting, it erupted into actual violence. During a scene where Vienna's saloon is attacked, Crawford accused McCambridge of deliberately spitting in her face during a take. She did it on purpose, Crawford reportedly screamed before lunging at her co-star. Crew members had to physically separate the two as Crawford clawed at McCambridge's face and hair. Director Nicholas Ray, rather than stopping the fight, allegedly ordered cameras to keep rolling, hoping to capture the raw animosity for the film. The next day, Crawford arrived on set with a bodyguard who remained throughout production. McCambridge, for her part, claimed Crawford was possessed by professional jealousy and that the spit was accidental. The incident was not isolated, it was just the most explosive moment in a campaign of mutual sabotage that included memorized line stealing, costume alterations, and strategic scheduling conflicts. Number 3. Nicholas Ray's cocaine habit. Director Nicholas Ray was not just crafting a Western, he was orchestrating chaos fueled by substance abuse. During Johnny Guitar's production, Ray's cocaine addiction reached critical levels, with the director often disappearing for hours at a time, leaving the cast and crew waiting. He'd emerge with pupils the size of dinner plates, full of manic energy and impossible demands, recalled Sterling. Hayden in his autobiography. The drug use was not recreational. It was Ray's desperate attempt to manage his deteriorating mental health and crumbling marriage to Gloria Graham, who visited the set and engaged in screaming matches with her husband. Ray's addiction directly influenced the film's frenetic energy and heightened emotional states. What audiences perceived as artistic vision was often just the director's chemically induced paranoia playing out on screen. Studio executives covered up Ray's condition, fearing production would be shut down completely. Number 4. The color revolution. Johnny Guitar was not just filmed in color, it was a deliberate assault on the traditional Western palette. Director Nicholas Ray and cinematographer Harry Stradling rejected the earthy tones of conventional Westerns, instead embracing an aggressive, almost surreal use of Technicolor. Vienna's saloon was not just a set, it was a crimson fortress against a dusty frontier. Crawford's costumes evolved from black to white to red, visually tracking her character's moral journey. We wanted to create a landscape that reflected the psychological state of the characters. Ray later explained, "The West wasn't brown and gray, it was emotional. This color rebellion was not just artistic, it was political. The film's vibrant hues were a subtle middle finger to the blacklisting hysteria gripping Hollywood, suggesting that nothing in this world was simply black or white. Critics at the time dismissed the approach as garish, but modern cinephiles recognize it as a revolutionary visual language that influenced everything from Sergio Leone's Westerns to the Coen brothers' No Country for Old Men. Number 5. Mercedes McCambridge's method torture. Mercedes McCambridge did not just play Emma Small, she became her through a regimen of psychological self-torture that alarmed even hardened crew members. To embody Emma's righteous fury, McCambridge isolated herself from other cast members, maintained a state of constant anger between takes, and even slept in her costume. She was Emma 24 hours a day, recalled a production assistant. You'd see her muttering to herself in corners, working herself into these rages. The method approach was so extreme that McCambridge's husband, director Fletcher Markle, flew to the set to intervene, concerned about his wife's mental health. What audiences did not know was that Emma's seething hatred for Vienna had roots in McCambridge's own feelings about Joan Crawford. The actress later admitted, "I didn't have to create the animosity. I just had to channel what was already there. McCambridge's performance was not acting, it was psychological warfare, and Crawford was the target." Number 6, the real-life gun accident. The gunplay in Johnny Guitar was not all movie magic. It resulted in a near-fatal accident that terrified the cast and crew. During a scene where Sterling Hayden's character demonstrates his shooting skills, a prop gun malfunctioned, sending a real bullet ricocheting inches from Joan Crawford's head. The starlet collapsed in shock while Hayden turned pale and reportedly quit the film on the spot. "We were making a Western, not preparing for one," he later quipped to reporters. Production shut down for 3 days as safety protocols were reviewed and new prop guns were sourced. The incident was not isolated. Several crew members reported that budget constraints led to shortcuts with weapons and explosives. What audiences perceived as thrilling action sequences were often genuinely dangerous moments captured on film. The near tragedy added to the set's already toxic atmosphere, with Crawford blaming director Nicholas Ray for prioritizing artistic vision over cast safety. Number 7, the political allegory that almost got the film banned. Johnny Guitar was not just a Western, it was a thinly veiled critique of McCarthyism that nearly got it banned in several states. Screenwriter Philip Jordan and director Nicholas Ray embedded the film with political subtext, with Vienna's persecution by Emma's mob symbolizing Hollywood's blacklisting hysteria. The witch hunt in the film wasn't just happening in the Old West, it was happening right then in our industry. Jordan later confessed, "Studio executives at Republic Pictures were horrified when they realized the film's political implications, demanding cuts that would soften the allegory. Ray refused, leading to threats of shelving the entire project. The controversy extended beyond the studio. Several theater chains refused to book the film, and conservative groups organized boycotts in multiple cities. What audiences didn't realize was that they were watching one of Hollywood's first major acts of defiance against the Red Scare, a courageous stand that would influence later politically charged films like High Noon and The Crucible." Number 8, Joan Crawford's costume warfare. The battle between Joan Crawford and Mercedes McCambridge extended to the wardrobe department, where Crawford used her star power to undermine her co-star's on-screen presence. Crawford, as the film's top-billed star, had approval rights over all costumes and systematically made changes that diminished McCambridge's character, Emma. She had Emma's colors muted, her silhouettes made less flattering, even her boots made slightly less distinctive, recalled a costume department intern. When McCambridge confronted Crawford about the sabotage, the star allegedly replied, "This is Vienna's story, darling. Emma's just the scenery." The costume warfare escalated until McCambridge appealed directly to director Nicholas Ray, who overruled several of Crawford's changes. The power play was not just vanity, it was a strategic effort to ensure that Vienna visually dominated every frame. What audiences did not know was that every costume choice was part of a larger battle for cinematic dominance, with Crawford fighting to maintain her star status against a co-star she perceived as a threat. Number 9, the abandoned opening sequence. Johnny Guitar originally began with a brutal sequence that was cut after test. Audiences reacted with horror. The deleted scene showed Vienna's saloon under attack by a masked gang, with several characters graphically killed before the opening credits. It was too violent, too shocking for 1954 audiences. Producer Herbert Yates later explained, "We wanted to establish Vienna's toughness, but we went too far. The sequence was expensive to film, involving multiple stunt performers, elaborate special effects, and several days of shooting. Its removal created continuity problems that required reshoots and additional scenes to patch the narrative." Director Nicholas Ray fought to keep the opening, arguing it established the frontier's lawlessness and Vienna's resilience. When studio executives overruled him, Ray allegedly destroyed the footage rather than allow it to be repurposed for other films. The missing opening has become one of cinema's great lost treasures, with film historians speculating about how its presence might have changed Johnny Guitar's initial reception and legacy. Number 10. Sterling Hayden's secret political past. Sterling Hayden was not just playing a former gunfighter, he brought his own controversial political history to Johnny Guitar. Before becoming an actor, Hayden was an actual merchant marine who briefly joined the Communist Party in the 1940s. During the McCarthy era, he testified before the House Un-American Activities Committee, initially refusing to name names before eventually cooperating and expressing regret for his brief communist affiliation. This real-life political baggage made Hayden's casting in the politically charged Johnny Guitar particularly ironic. "I was playing a man haunted by his past while being haunted by my own," Hayden wrote in his autobiography. The actor's personal turmoil added layers to his performance that director Nicholas Ray expertly captured on film. What audiences did not know was that Hayden's internal conflict between his radical past and his present compromises mirrored the film's themes of redemption and false accusations. Hayden's casting was not just fortuitous, it was a meta-commentary on the political witch hunts gripping Hollywood. Number 11. The Secret Pregnancy. Joan Crawford was not just battling her co-stars, she was fighting a secret pregnancy throughout filming. The 46-year-old actress discovered she was expecting shortly before production began, but concealed the condition from studio executives, fearing they would recast her role. She wore tighter corsets, had costumes strategically altered, and even performed her own stunts to hide the pregnancy, recalled a wardrobe assistant. The physical toll was immense, with Crawford often collapsing between takes from exhaustion and morning sickness. What makes this particularly remarkable is that Vienna's character was specifically written as a childless woman, creating a painful irony that Crawford channeled into her performance. The pregnancy ended in miscarriage midway through production, an event Crawford blamed on the physical demands of the role and the stress of her conflicts with Mercedes McCambridge. The personal tragedy deepened Crawford's connection to Vienna's isolation and strength, adding layers to her portrayal that audiences could feel but never fully understand. Number 12. The Budget Disaster. Johnny Guitar was not just artistically ambitious, it was a financial disaster that nearly bankrupted Republic Pictures. The film's original budget of $1.2 million ballooned to over $2.5 million due to numerous production problems, including extensive reshoots, damaged equipment, and costly delays caused by cast conflicts. "Every day we were losing money," producer Herbert Yates later admitted. "The stars were fighting, the director was unreliable, and the weather wasn't cooperating." Republic Pictures, known for its budget-conscious approach to filmmaking, had never greenlit such an expensive project. The studio's financial investment in Johnny Guitar represented a significant gamble that did not pay off. Initially, the film underperformed at the box office, earning just $1.8 million domestically. What audiences didn't realize was that the lavish sets, elaborate costumes, and extensive location shooting they were enjoying were actually putting the studio's future at risk. The financial failure of Johnny Guitar contributed to Republic Pictures' decline as a major Hollywood player, proving that artistic ambition doesn't always translate to commercial success. Number 13. The Censored Lesbian Subtext. Johnny Guitar contained one of Hollywood's earliest explorations of lesbian subtext, most of which was censored before release. The intense relationship between Vienna, Joan Crawford, and Emma, Mercedes McCambridge, was originally written with more overt romantic undertones, including scenes of physical intimacy and dialogue suggesting a former romantic relationship between the women. The production code office had a fit, screenwriter Philip Jordan later recalled. "They said we were trying to make a perverted Western." The most significant cuts involved a flashback sequence showing Vienna and Emma as younger women, suggesting their relationship had soured after a romantic betrayal. Director Nicholas Ray fought to keep elements of the subtext, using visual cues and coded dialogue to hint at the women's complex history. What modern audiences might miss is how revolutionary this was. For 1954, the film was pushing boundaries of female relationships and sexuality years before such themes became more acceptable in cinema. The surviving subtext is subtle but powerful, adding psychological depth to the women's rivalry that transcends typical Western conflicts. Number 14. The Ghost in the Huami Saloon. The set of Vienna's saloon was not just a filming location, it was reportedly haunted by the ghost of a woman who died on the property decades earlier. Cast and crew members reported numerous unexplained phenomena during filming, including objects moving on their own, mysterious cold spots, and the sound of a woman crying when no one was present. Joan Crawford refused to be in the saloon alone after dark, a production assistant claimed. She said she could feel someone watching her. The strangest incident occurred during the filming of the saloon's destruction sequence, when several crew members claimed to see a transparent figure of a woman in old-fashioned clothing watching from the rafters. Director Nicholas Ray, a man with spiritual interests, did not dismiss these reports and even incorporated the eerie atmosphere into his shots. What audiences did not know was that some of the saloon's most unsettling moments were not just cinematic techniques, they were captured in an environment that genuinely disturbed the cast and crew, adding an authentic layer of supernatural tension to the film. Number 15. The Stolen Performance. Mercedes McCambridge did not just deliver a great performance as Emma Small, she delivered one that was partially stolen from another actress. McCambridge was not the first choice for the role, which was originally offered to Barbara Stanwyck. When Stanwyck declined, McCambridge studied Stanwyck's previous Western performances and incorporated elements of her acting style into her portrayal of Emma. She was mimicking Stanwyck's cadences, her gestures, even her facial expressions, a casting director later revealed. The performance was not just imitation, it was a brilliant synthesis that created something entirely new. McCambridge added her own ferocious intensity, resulting in a character that felt both familiar and shockingly original. What makes this particularly ironic is that McCambridge was publicly critical of Stanwyck's acting style, calling it too calculated in interviews. The stolen performance became one of the most memorable aspects of Johnny Guitar, proving that great art sometimes comes from questionable sources. McCambridge won critical acclaim for her work, with many reviewers noting the familiar yet fresh quality of her performance without knowing its secret origin. Number 16. The Director's Affair. Director Nicholas Ray was not just making a film, he was conducting a torrid affair with one of the film's supporting actresses right under his wife's nose. Ray, whose marriage to Gloria Graham was already crumbling, began a relationship with actress Joan Evans, who played a small role as a settler early in production. They weren't even trying to hide it, a crew member recalled. He'd keep her on set long after her scenes were done and they'd disappear into his trailer together. The affair created tension not just with Graham, who visited the set multiple times, but also with Joan Crawford, who reportedly felt Evans was receiving preferential treatment. What audiences did not know was that Ray's romantic turmoil directly influenced his approach to the film's complex relationships, particularly the triangle between Vienna, Johnny, and the dancing kid. The director's personal experiences with betrayal and desire added psychological authenticity to the film's emotional dynamics. The affair ended shortly after production wrapped, but its impact on Johnny Guitar remains visible in every frame charged with romantic tension and emotional conflict. Number 17. The Abandoned Musical Numbers. Johnny Guitar was not originally conceived as a traditional Western, it was planned as a musical with several elaborate song and dance numbers. Early drafts of the script included Vienna performing in her saloon, Johnny Guitar singing ballads, and even a full ensemble number with the townsfolk. We had choreographers working, composers writing songs, the whole 9 yards, producer Herbert Yates later admitted. The musical approach was abandoned after early screen tests proved disastrous, with Joan Crawford's singing voice receiving particularly harsh criticism. It was clear we had a great Western on our hands. Not a musical, director Nicholas Ray explained. The transition from musical to dramatic Western required extensive script revisions and reshoots, adding to the film's budget and production time. What audiences didn't realize was that several scenes in the final film retained their musical structure, particularly the saloon sequences that have a rhythmic, choreographed quality despite lacking actual songs. The abandoned musical numbers became one of Hollywood's great what-ifs, with film historians speculating about how Johnny Guitar might have changed the Western musical genre had they been retained. Number 18. The Real-Life Gunfighter Consultant. Johnny Guitar's authenticity was not just cinematic smoke and mirrors, it was enhanced by the presence of an actual former gunfighter who served as a technical consultant. John Wesley Hardin's grandson, John Wesley Hardin III, was hired to ensure the film's gunfights and frontier life were depicted accurately. He knew things about handling a six-shooter that no book could teach us, Sterling Hayden later recalled. The consultant taught the actors proper gun handling techniques, period-specific drawing methods, and even the psychological mindset of real gunfighters. His contributions went beyond technical details. He shared stories about his grandfather and other notorious figures that inspired character moments and dialogue. What makes this particularly fascinating is that Hardin's grandfather was one of the most feared gunfighters of the Old West, responsible for killing as many as 42 men. The consultant's presence on set created an eerie connection between Hollywood's myth-making and the brutal reality of frontier violence. When audiences watched Johnny Guitar's gunfights, they were seeing techniques and attitudes passed down from one of the West's most lethal figures. Number 19. The studio's attempted sabotage. Republic Pictures did not just produce Johnny Guitar, they actively tried to sabotage its release after realizing how politically subversive it was. Studio executives, alarmed by the film's allegorical critique of McCarthyism, deliberately booked it in fewer theaters, provided minimal advertising, and even released it without the usual press screenings. They were hoping it would just die quietly, a distribution executive later confessed. The studio's attempts to bury the film backfired when critics who did see it championed its artistic merits and political courage. What audiences did not know was that the film's limited release was not due to lack of confidence in its quality. It was a deliberate attempt to suppress its message. The sabotage attempt became part of Johnny Guitar's legend, adding another layer of irony to a film about persecution and injustice. Republic's actions inadvertently enhanced the film's subversive reputation, making it a favorite among intellectuals and film critics who recognize its courageous stand against the blacklisting hysteria gripping Hollywood. Number 20. Joan Crawford's final take. The most powerful scene in Johnny Guitar Vienna's confrontation with Emma was filmed in a single take that nearly cost Joan Crawford her eyesight. During the climactic sequence, a special effect gunpowder explosion malfunctioned, sending burning debris directly toward Crawford's face. Instead of calling cut, the actress maintained her character's composure, delivering her lines through tears of pain while debris burned in her eyes. She didn't flinch. She didn't break character. Director Nicholas Ray later marveled. It was the bravest thing I've ever seen on a film set. The take was so powerful that Ray refused to shoot another version, despite Crawford requiring immediate medical attention afterward. The actress suffered temporary vision impairment and corneal burns but refused to delay production. What audiences witnessed on screen was not just great acting, it was a moment of genuine physical suffering transformed into artistic triumph. Crawford's professional sacrifice during that single take encapsulates the film's themes of endurance and strength, making Vienna's final confrontation with Emma one of cinema's most authentically powerful moments. Bonus fact: the song Johnny Guitar was not just written for the film, it was based on a real-life murder ballad about a guitar-playing outlaw who killed his lover and her new beau in a jealous rage. Composer Victor Young and lyricist Peggy Lee adapted the folk song, softening its violent origins for the film. What makes this particularly chilling is that the real Johnny Guitar was executed just months before the film's release, with his last words reportedly being, "Tell them I played a mean guitar." The connection between the historical figure and the film's protagonist was deliberately downplayed by the studio, who feared the association might tarnish the movie's reputation. When Peggy Lee performed the song for the film's soundtrack, she reportedly felt haunted by the real story, telling a friend, "I'm singing about a dead man who killed for love." This dark foundation adds a layer of authenticity to the film's exploration of violence and passion, suggesting that sometimes truth is indeed stranger and more disturbing than fiction. Johnny Guitar was not just a Western, it was a battlefield where personal demons, political fears, and artistic ambitions collided in a blaze of Technicolor fury. What began as a genre film became something far more revolutionary, a subversive masterpiece that challenged conventions both on and off screen.